Hi guys, this is Alex. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on a skirt S9267 from Simplicity, and I'm going to be doing view B, just something halfway to my knees, and we'll see how that fits, and then if I want to raise the hemline, then I'll do that. But without further ado, let's get started. Hi guys, today we are working on Simplicity S9267. It is a skirt and I'm going to be working on view B. This pattern comes in 2 size ranges, so make sure that you select the correct one. It comes in size range from 6 to 14 and 16 to 24. The sizes do not overlap. So make sure again that you select the correct pattern range that you are going to need. So let me tell you about the pieces that we're going to need. We're going to need pattern piece number 1, and this is the skirt front, and you're going to cut 2. The pattern's also asking you to interface this line over here because we are going to be putting buttons down the front, so we have to interface that. We're also going to need pattern piece number 4, and this is the skirt back, and you're going to cut 2. You're also going to need pattern piece number 2. This is the pocket facing. You're going to cut 2. We're also going to need the front yoke and pocket. That is piece number 3, and you're going to cut 2. You're also going to need pattern piece number 5, and this is the waistband front, and you're going to cut 4 of fabric and cut 2 of interfacing. And you're also going to need the back waistband. This is pattern piece number 6, and you're going to cut 2 on the fold of fabric and 1 on the fold of interfacing. So go ahead and cut your pattern pieces now. Don't forget to mark your notches and put your dots, and also interface any pieces that need to be interfaced. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that you cut your pieces and you interface like I did over here, the pattern is asking us to stay stitched on the direction of the arrow. So this is piece 1, and you are going to stay stitched from this angled edge all the way towards the middle of the skirt. And the stay stitch will be 1/2 inch away from the raw edge, or 1.3 centimeters. And once you do that for both piece number 1, it's also asking you to go ahead and press this folded edge, press, and then baste. So go ahead and do that now for both pieces number 1. All right, so I went ahead and folded and basted that folded edge right on this side. And I also finish my seams. If you don't have a serger, you can also do a zigzag. So go ahead and also finish your seam. You don't have to because this is going to be encased, but it's linen. So I definitely want to make sure that this doesn't unravel on me. So I went ahead and finished it. But so you basted that edge, and now the pattern is calling for you to yet again press again and go ahead and stitch, not baste, stitch on this inner edge, and that you stop 6 inches away from the hem. So go ahead and grab your sewing gauge and mark 6 inches away. So that's right there. I put a little dot on both of my pieces number 1, and I'm going to stitch, not baste. You need to stitch. So go ahead and stitch as close as you can to this edge, and don't forget to back stitch at the start and at the end. Go ahead and do that for both pieces number 1. All right, guys, so we finished this inner edge and we stopped by this dot, and I wanted to remind you this is going to be from the raw edge, not the hem. Our hem is going to come much later. So make sure that you do 6 inches from the edge and that you also finish your pleats. So go ahead and fold your pleats, and they are going to go towards the center of the skirt. And I'm going to baste this and press. So go ahead and do that for both pieces number 1. All right, guys, now that we got our pleats done and we got our front, and make sure that your pleats match. What do I mean by that? You want to make sure that both of your pleats are in the same direction, opposite directions when you are looking at your skirt. So now that we got that done, you are going to grab your pocket facing, and that's piece number 2. And with right sides together, you are going to go ahead and pin. And you are going to pin matching the edges and also these dots. So go ahead and stitch 5/8 inch seam allowance. Don't forget the back stitch at the start and at the end. Go ahead and do that for both pocket facings. Go ahead and do that now. All right, guys, so we went ahead and attached our pocket facings, and now I'm going to go ahead and understitch. So what I want to do is stitch as close as possible to that other stitch that I just made on top. And I want to do that because when I fold this over, I want to make sure that I don't see any of this fabric, so that the pocket facing is staying inside the pocket and not peeking out. So go ahead and do that. So once you understitch, you're going to go ahead and press, and then you are going to do top stitching 1/4 inch away from the edge. So go ahead and do that for both pockets. All right, guys, so I went ahead and understitch my pocket facing, and if you can see that line right there, what I did is I stitched the pocket facing to that seam allowance, and what that does is it keeps the pocket towards the inside. So when I put my skirt like this, right, we still have to attach the back side of the pocket to finish this, but you are not going to see any of the fabric peeking. And that's where you can have some fun, like I am going to, with your fabric inside your pocket. It's not going to be seen, but you want to make sure that you do that understitching. And also now I have to also top stitch 1/4 inch away from the edge. So don't skip your understitching. It's really important that you do that step. Go ahead and do the top stitching for both of your pocket edge right now. All right, guys, so we went ahead and did top stitching on our pocket front. So that looks amazing. So I hope yours looks just as good, and I know it does. So go ahead and take your pocket and go ahead and match your notches. You're going to pin all the way around. So go ahead now and stitch 5/8 inch seam allowance all the way around the edge of the pocket, and make sure that you are not stitching your skirt front, that you're just stitching your pocket. And once you do that, that you also finish the raw edge of the pocket. So go ahead and do that for both pockets. All right, guys, so we went ahead and did our pockets. They look great. Right now we are going to go ahead and put that off to the side, and we are going to grab piece number 8, and we are going to go ahead and stay stitch. So again, at the top, stitch a row of stitches 1/2 inch away from the raw edge, and don't forget to do your pleats. Go ahead and do that for both pieces number 8. This is the skirt back. All right, so we went ahead and we did our stay stitching, and then we also did our pleat. And if you ever have any questions which way the pleat is going, just take a look at your pattern, right? And we marked our pleat. I did on the inside, right? Those are my blue marks, but you see this. So you're going to grab your inside and you're going to, or I should say the outside, and that's how your pleat goes. Same thing this way. Obviously, when you're cutting the pattern, if you're cutting 2, so one is this way and the other pattern piece is the other way. So same thing. So when you go to look at the back, right, here you go. So your pleats are, again, a mirror of each other. So next thing that the pattern calls for is to grab your 2 back pieces and then to stitch them together. So go ahead and line up your notches and then pin there first. So go ahead and stitch 5/8 inch seam allowance. Don't forget the back stitch at the start and all the way to the end. And now is a good time also to finish those edges. So go ahead and stitch your back skirt backs together. Go ahead and do that now. All right, guys, so we went ahead and finished the 2 skirts back, and I went ahead and pressed my seam off to the side and finished my seam with my serger. Again, if you don't have a serger, you can do a zigzag stitch. And now I want you to grab your skirt front and with right sides together, so go ahead and stitch 5/8 inch seam allowance. Don't forget the back stitch at the start and at the end. Go ahead and do that for both skirt fronts. All right, guys, so we went ahead and stitched our front skirts pieces to the back of our skirt pieces. And I would definitely suggest that at this time you try your skirt on. I went ahead and took in my skirt quite a bit because obviously it's linen and it stretches. So I went ahead and did that. But now that that's done, go ahead and put those pieces off to the side and you are going to grab pieces 5 and 6, and this is the band. And again, with right sides together, you are going to match your notches and you are going to pin on both sides. And you are going to stitch 5/8 inch seam allowance. Don't forget the back stitch on both sides, and also go ahead and press your seams open and trim them, just because we don't want any bulk as this is going to be on your waist. Go ahead and do that now. All right, you got your waistband, all your 3 pieces sewn together. So now you are going to grab your skirt and you are going to match your notches and your seams. And then match your other side seam. Okay guys, go ahead and stitch 5/8 inch seam allowance. Don't forget the back stitch at the start and at the end. Go ahead and do that now. All right guys, so we attached our waistband to our skirt, and I went ahead and also pressed my seams towards the waistband, and I also trimmed my seams. So we're going to go ahead and put that off to the side, and we are going to grab our interface pieces for the waistband, and same thing, we are going to match our notches, and we are going to stitch 5/8 inch seam allowance. Don't forget the back stitch at the start and at the end, and also go ahead and finish your seams. And usually when I do linen, especially this linen, I just use a cotton or just something that feels a little bit smoother around my waist. You can also use linen, but I just used a cotton lawn, something fun, since the skirt's a little bit more on the classic side. I wanted to have a little bit of fun, so I put this print on my waistband and also in my pockets. But anyhow, go ahead and do that now. All right guys, so I went ahead and stitched my waistband, and I also pressed the bottom edge 1/2 inch. And now I'm going to grab my skirt, and you want to go ahead and want to match your seams yet again. Always match those seams and any notches. So go ahead and pin. And then keep pinning. Okay guys, so go ahead and stitch 5/8" seam allowance starting here. Go ahead and pivot, and if you need to measure, grab a put a dot where you need to pivot. So 5/8" seam allowance down here, pivot, keep going all the way down, and yet again do the same on both on that side, and then yet again finish on this end. So don't forget the back stitch at the start and the end, and go ahead and do that now. All right guys, so I went ahead and stitched my interface waistband to the waistband. So now I want you to go ahead and clip these corners because we are going to flip this over, right? So we want to make sure that we don't have any bulk on that areas. So go ahead and do that. And make sure that you are not catching your stitches. Once we do that, we are going to flip this over, and then I'm going to understitch my interfaced waistband. So again, I want to make sure that I'm stitching the seam allowance is going towards the inside, because again, I don't want to see any of this, and you are going to flip all of this over and make sure that you poke out your corners. So go ahead and do that now. All right guys, so we understitch our the inside of our waistband, and I don't know if you can see those stitches right there. That is understitching, and what happens is once you press your waistband, it just stays in the inside and you don't see it outside. So now that you press that, right, it's calling for you to go ahead and stitch in the ditch. So you definitely want to make sure that this edge is catching on that seam right there, because that's where you are going to be stitching in the ditch. But you want to make sure that you are catching the inside of that. You can also slip stitch with just needle and thread, but stitch in the ditch is the way to go for this. So go ahead and do that, and make sure that you are pinning, because you want to make sure that none of this is moving on you. Actually pin on this side, right? Because then you know that it's catching the waistband. So go ahead and do that now. All right guys, now that I stitched in the ditch and my waistband is attached inside, I also went ahead and did some top stitching. I don't know if you can see it there. And then I want you to do your buttons, right? And then the last thing is your hem, which the pattern is asking you to go ahead and stitch this facing, not facing, but kind of like outer edge, which I'm going to call the facing, and stitch from the outer piece to the edge, and then go ahead and flip it over, right? And then go ahead and turn and then stitch. So, and that's it guys. I hope you like this sew along. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed that sew along. Don't forget to leave me any questions or comments below, and please remember to subscribe and ring the bell. See you next time. Bye.